All right, what's up, everybody? I have a topic I've wanted to talk about for a while, and this event that's ongoing with the Isleweaver update has served as a bit of a catalyst. Kind of like just a general talk about end game content in Warframe, even though Warframe doesn't like really have end game content, if we're just going to be honest. There are systems and activities which are clearly tailored towards end game or like veteran players, however you want to interpret that. So specifically, I'm referring to EDA, ETA, and we also have like Duviri. I guess is like you can kind of get some evergreen rewards there. So I'm not a huge fan of the randomized loadout approach. Um, Now, do the operation that's currently ongoing. It is in Duviri, so the Isleweaver content is in Duviri, which includes, randomized loadouts as well as the decrees, which are also random. Now, I actually don't mind the random loadouts in Duviri as much, for a couple of reasons. Well, one, you get more frame options, which is nice. Two, you get like about the same weapon options. I think you do kind of get less weapon options, which I wish they would give you more weapon options in Duviri for a higher chance to get something that's decent. But regardless, you still get decrees, and decrees are so strong that it kind of makes up for it. And it can almost be like, you can almost do like little builds with your decrees, right? So it doesn't feel quite as bad. Now, I think that this event, uh, I have seen some people saying they like it, which I'm kind of confused. But if somebody likes something and I don't like it, obviously we just have a different opinion or different taste. So I'm not going to judge those people. I feel like this event is almost like the culmination of everything I don't like in Warframe right now. So you have the randomized loadouts. In addition, the Isleweaver event is like, or the A Claw event is like the lone story or whatever, the story only option for Duviri with no side content. So it's not like you can like power up your decrees or anything like that. So you don't really, and like you're not able to get enough decrees to offset getting really bad choices. So sometimes you just have to leave and be like, oh, okay, well, I just can't do it with this loadout because it's just too bad. And that feels really terrible because you can be put into a situation where you just try to re-roll until you get something decent, or you just say, okay, well, I'm just gonna get carried. And like I was just in a run with two of the people on my team were basically dead the entire time. And it's like, I res them, just trying to, I'm not gonna like flame them or anything. There's no point in doing that, especially because Warframe is like a co-op PvE game. But I can't imagine it felt good for those players to just be on the floor dead, and they did basically no damage the entire time. Me and the other person were like, alive and doing about the same amount of damage, which is like, it's whatever. Like as long as the mission gets completed, I still had fun because the options I was given were okay, but I can't imagine that that was a good experience for those two other people that were dead the whole time. So on top of the you can't juice up with decrees, you do have limited build options, and then there's the Araxia fight, which I think is an absolute abomination. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think it would actually be a fine boss fight if you could go in with a dedicated loadout to deal with that boss. Say like, okay, when she's on the ground, I want a melee weapon that can deal with damage attenuation. I want a or maybe a melee weapon or a ranged weapon that can blow up the big spiders quickly with the nullifier shields. I want a frame that isn't like hurt too badly by the nullifier shields. Need a good range weapon for when she's up on the walls. Like, there is some thought process you could put into that. And I could see, coming up with like, oh, this is like a good loadout for the Oraxia fight. But it's in Duviri, so you can't do that. You have no idea what you're going to get beforehand. So the run I was just on, I got Valkyr as one of my options, thank goodness, because every single weapon I got was complete trash. It was either a terrible weapon or it was brand new. It was like the Spinner X, which I don't have a build for yet because I haven't even made the weapon yet. That's why I'm farming that event. So my weapons were unusably bad. And I took Valkyr, one, because I've been enjoying playing her lately, but two, because, Exalted Frame, you can still do damage even though you get bad weapon options. Now, this is where, like, the issue with the Araxia fight comes in, where there's the Nullifier Spiders, which those things just, like, munch people down. Those things do absolutely insane amounts of damage. So, like, and it's not even that high level steel path, they just do like crazy damage. So like people, I almost just like go into operator preemptively for that fight because I know that people are going to die, so I can just dash to them and res them quickly. And it was miserable because I couldn't kill them with my Valkyr claws because they had the nullifier bubbles, and all my weapons were terrible. So I just had to wait till my teammates killed them. I mean, I still shot at them, but my weapons were not good. My best weapon option I got was Zuge Prime, which is like okay, but it's not like amazing. And obviously I took mostly melee decrees because I was playing Valkyr. So I think that that's a cool fight if you could bring a loadout into it. But the fact that you are forced to fight that boss with a randomized loadout is like really miserable. Um, so another thing is the damage attenuation. So you basically have three bosses, maybe arguably four in the event mission. So you have Araxia, damage attenuation. You have the final boss, which you fight it by itself, and it has damage attenuation. Get to half HP, and then there's the duet fight. So you get two instances of the boss, both of which also have damage attenuation. So it just like it feels. I don't know what the solution is. I genuinely don't know. I really don't know what the best way to deal with the disparity between a good Warframe or weapon build and a bad weapon build and the difference in damage those are going to do. I don't really know how to deal with that. I know that that's the problem they're trying to solve with damage attenuation, but it feels so bad. Like I'm like, oh man, I got some pretty good decrees actually for like, Valkyr for her claws. And it's just like it literally doesn't matter. Like you once you hit the damage cap, it's like you're playing like Final Fantasy 10 or something. It's like you're like, oh, here's like the 10k damage cap. You can't go over it. And there's no Buster Sword or whatever the hell was in that game to like go over the damage cap. Like you just that's it. So um, and you're not guaranteed to get one of the few weapons that's good against damage attenuation. So it just feels like such a slog. So I think the combination of the nullifier spiders and the Araxia fight, damage attenuation just continuing to not be a very pleasant mechanic to deal with, and then there's the RNG loadouts. It just like it makes it feel like everything you've like accumulated in Warframe is like null and void going into that mission. Because even if you do RNG into a good loadout, it still doesn't matter because all the bosses have damage attenuation anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you have good builds or great builds or kind of okay builds on your stuff. You just have to pray to get decent weapons. So I actually feel like this event is almost like a perfect encapsulation of everything I don't like about the game right now. So needless to say, I have not been having a super fun time. I do think Valkyrie is really fun, although I think her rework has some issues. I think overall she's way more fun. Now this is where my second issue comes in. So this is kind of like a reiteration of a point I've made previously, which is damage is just too fucking high. Like I'm just gonna say it. Like it is ridiculous. Like the fact that these spiders in the Araxia fight are just one-shotting people left and right. Um, I also have tried to do EDA and ETA the past couple days, and before and after the reset. And here's the frame builds that I was using. Okay, so I had Xcal with a health tank build. So Arcane Blessing, full Umbral mods, Adaptation, Gloom. I also had Atlas, which again I had an extremely defensive health tank build on. I had full Umbrals, Adaptation. Like he has a trillion armor, like 3,000 armor with his passive. So like, it's it's kind of insane. And then I think the other one was, oh yeah, Valkyrie, right? So the other frame that I was, still dying on in the Duviri missions, which aren't even that high level, the Isleweaver missions, um, with this build, double defensive arcanes, full umbrals, adaptation, gloom, buffs to armor from Warcry and Hysteria, like I still had issues surviving with this build. Like I was still procking. Well, I didn't have issues like surviving, but the fact that my passive was still getting procced is unbelievable. That is just absolutely insane. So all these frames that I just showed all have like 3,000 health, what, like once they're like fully buffed up, like, and some of them, a couple of the missions I even had a wisp. So I had like 3,000 health, 3 to 4, like in Valkyr's case, probably more than 4,000 armor. Like you're telling me that I'm making health tank frames that are that tanky with that much of investment, like single or double defensive arcanes, defensive helmet abilities, and I'm still literally getting one shot. Like that is just absurd. Like you can go watch. I streamed on YouTube playing EDA with Atlas last night, and I was just getting one shot left and right with this super, what should have been a very tanky health tank build. So like I just really feel like they are missing an opportunity here with this Valkyrie rework to show the player base they understand there is a problem in Warframe right now. Yes, you can do those missions with a health tank build. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the amount of investment you have to make and the increase in difficulty is ridiculous compared to something like a shield gate build. You want to see the difference in my health tank build and my shield gate build for Valkyrie? Double defensive arcanes, full umbrals, adaptation, shield gate build, and like relying on my passive, literally just fast deflection. And I don't even think I actually need this. This is just kind of for the memes. So if I abuse my passive and shield gating, I need no defensive mods. If I try to health tank, I need like, if I count my arcanes, 1, 2, we can skip intensify, 4, 5, and helmet like 6. So whereas here I'm not even using a helmet. So like that's absolutely ridiculous to me. Um, I still love the game. I like want to play Warframe more than I do, honestly. Because a lot of times I log in and the only things left for me to do really are things like EDA, ETA, this Isleweaver event. Like, so when all of those things are using randomized loadouts, and like, I work and I'm putting my kids to bed. I just want to sit down and log in and use the frame and use the weapons that I want to use that night. And I'm not a person who like one tricks frames by any stretch of the imagination. If we go to my usage stats, my highest usage for a frame is 4.5%. So I spread my playtime across a lot of different frames. I have a ton of frames that are like around 3% or 2%. So like I don't just play one frame all the time. I like playing a lot of different, frames. Weapons, there's a little less diversity because like, I generally, I guess, a lot of Fulmin, which I actually haven't used the Fulmin in forever. I still try to switch things up with my weapons. I think there's a little less variety with the secondaries. A lot of Tenet Psychron these days, if I'm going to be honest. Companions, I have not used a Smita Kavat for literally years, so I don't know why it's so high. But yeah, in terms of Warframes, like I really try to play a lot of different frames. And I think that's reflected in my usage stats. So the fact that like I like using different frames, I like using different weapons. I have multi-forma builds for basically every frame and any good weapon, good or great weapon. And I still don't like the fact that I am forced into these random loadouts. And yes, you can say that they're optional, but if you don't use the random loadouts, you're restricting yourself to a reward pool that's so much worse. You might as well just not even do the content at that point. So, I guess this is a bit of a rant video. I usually try to be pretty positive, so I'm sorry if this comes off as a little negative. I just really like the game and like I want it to succeed, and I understand like maybe I'm just past the point where Warframe is for me because I've played it too much, and I do play a lot of other games now. I play a lot of single player games. I play a lot of, whatever, a lot of different games. So like, I try to broaden my horizons. So when I do come back to Warframe, it feels good, but that makes it even worse because since I don't play it that often as much anymore, when I come back, I'm like, oh, I really want to play like Mag with this particular weapon and try out the synergy, and it's like, oh well, I can't. That kind of sucks. So, anywho, long story short, I still think damage is way too high. I hope that they look at that. I think health tanking desperately needs a tweak. I think that um, the event showcases some of the drawbacks of the current implementation of Warframe's endgame, namely randomized loadouts and damage attenuation. And I guess I'm just looking forward to TennoCon and seeing if maybe we might hear some news that'll change any of this. That's really what I'm hoping for at this point. More than new content, I'm hoping that they revise how they are doing things a little bit, and update that. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'm just way off base. Maybe I'm just kind of salty, but you know. All right. Thanks for watching.